This is episode number 445. WordPress apps, the big unbundling. I'm Jason Tucker. Go to my website at jasontucker.blog. This is Say Reed. You can go check her out over at Kierden.com.
And y'all know who it is. It's your boy Jason Cosper, aka Fat Mama Mike, back at it again on the world's most influential WordPress podcast.
And those podcasts can be listened on a variety of places where you find great podcasts. And if you want, come hang out with us on Discord. Links are in the description below.
It's the Jason and Jason show today.
Whoop, whoop.
Say Reed is out on assignment with a sick child and trying to juggle everything else. So Tucker and I thought that we would chat a little bit about this kind of thing that has been going on lately in the iOS and Android, for those folks who use it, app space of unbundling. And specifically the unbundling of Jetpack features from the WordPress app.
Yeah. Which I haven't. I feel like I haven't really used either app all that much.
Not really.
Until I started doing stuff on Mastodon. which is funny, but it's like because of that, and some of the tools I'm using on my website, plugins and whatnot, I want to be able to, look at those comments and see what people are doing and all that fun stuff. So yeah, very interesting to see, the latest developments of how these things are happening over at, which mainly feels like WordPress.com. Right.
Yeah, I was going to say, tell me a little more about how specifically tying your site into the Fediverse has kind of got you using the phone apps a little bit more.
Yeah. So for me, web mentions have been a big thing. And when someone goes and mentions me on, mainly Mastodon at this point, but probably other places as well, and include a link to a particular blog post or something that I wrote on my website, jasontucker.blog, that what ends up happening is the website, gets kind of pinged saying, hey, there's a comment, go take a look at it. And then I go into my comments, which currently I'm doing that in the WordPress app, going into that app and then looking at the comments. I see that there's a mention, and I'll even get a notification that there's a mention. I'll see that there's a mention, and then I'll tap it saying I approve it and I allow for it to show up on the site. Then it shows up as a comment down below my blog post, where someone's chimed in about something, or they liked it, or they did one of the different verbs that you can do with like activity pub type stuff.
Sure. Now, so you are actually going through and approving what makes it back to your site, as opposed to just kind of letting the fire hose go.
No, I mean, if I did that, it would be crazy, because there would just be too much stuff. There's plenty of spam that gets picked up. I mean, that site's been around for a while. Even Water Cooler, we get tons of spam, and stuff like that. So. And even on the Water Cooler site, which we do have it tied to Mastodon, and we do have those sorts of things, but I can go in and approve comments and stuff like that through various web mentions, as well as just comments straight on the website.
Sure.
But yeah, so that's how I've been approaching it. I do a lot of my computing on my phone. I'd say probably 50-50 of my personal stuff occurs on my phone. So, yeah, so I don't really sit at a computer. I sit at a computer when I'm at work, but when I'm at home, this room's kind of dormant until Friday.
Right.
Unless I'm playing a game.
As opposed to me, where I spend the majority of my time on my laptop. And although my wife Sarah might argue that I do also spend a majority of time on my phone after work is over, but that's a personal problem that I'm attempting to deal with a little bit. But yeah, I really that is kind of remarkable to me that you spend so much time doing that. And I know that, but it actually absolutely makes sense because I know that you also really have um, like some of the things that you end up doing. Like you've complained in the past about editing uh, stuff on your site in Gutenberg from your phone is
The
just
worst.
to do. Yeah. So that makes sense, really, that you do actually spend a lot of time, doing stuff from your phone. I mean, you're an IT guy. You may have to be in a server room. You may have to
Hmm.
go run over to somebody's desk and do something. So, I absolutely get that. But
Well, we're supposed to be
it's
mobile first, Cosper. We're supposed to be mobile first. This
I,
is
I
this is what this is what has been ingrained in our brain here. It's supposed to be mobile first. You need to make sure that the mobile stuff works. And I always feel like mobile is last, and it's always treated as last, and it's never. Why would you edit your website on your phone? Well, because I
sure,
read a website on my phone as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's not mobile first. It's mobile worst, right?
Oh yeah, by far, by far.
Yeah. It's yeah, that really can be. It is kind of a second class citizen because a lot of people who are building the software that we're using, they're not building it on mobile
Hmm.
devices. They're not. There are folks who I know that. Gosh, who is? I'm probably going to butcher their name, but Federico Vitici, who writes Mac stories,
Yeah.
is primarily somebody who works like day to day off of their iPad. Um, and I mean, they run a Mac news site and write big long articles and everything else off of their iPad and kind of um, espouse that it is possible, it is something to do. But I mean, still at the end of the day, the majority of folks that are developing WordPress, that are developing the apps that we depend on, the plugins and everything in the WordPress ecosystem, are all mostly tied to laptops, tied
Hmm.
to all this other stuff. My friend and one of our compatriots over on our Mastodon server, Simeon.rodeo, is my friend Jeremy Kitchen, who he um, has like basically decided he's got the funds saved up and he's currently bike touring through New Zealand for like 6 months, and he was all set to spin up like a WordPress.com site, and he had everything ready to go and everything else. And I said, hey, like this was just right around the same time. I said, hey, do you want an account on this Mastodon server? Like he hasn't really been enjoying Twitter all that much. I said, do you want to just do that? And he found using the interface on Mastodon and for microblogging like so much easier to post updates from the road than using Gutenberg or the WordPress
Hmm.
app off of his phone. And doing and posting some of this stuff can still be incredibly painful. Which
Yeah.
now that we're 10 minutes into the show, just in pure water cooler fashion, let's talk about why we're here. So it seems like Automattic lately has been sort of unbundling a lot of their functionality. It started out about a year and a half ago with Jetpack. They started kind of taking Jetpack and, well, it's been going on for a lot longer than that. Back when George used to come on the show regularly, they started kind of componentizing different bits of Jetpack. So basically, like um, every component inside of Jetpack, every feature inside of Jetpack was like its own piece that could then be assembled into the big monolith like Jetpack plugin, that
Mm-hmm.
each feature. And I remember saying to George at the time, like, "Hey, come on, does that mean that we're going to start getting individual Jetpack features as like individual plugins so I can just install what I need?" And he goes, "I don't know about that." And I'm sure he couldn't say anything, but
Right.
that's the direction that it seems like they've ended up going in within the past, like I said, about 18 months or so, is that you're starting to see they have, all the different verticals, where it's like, okay, in this bundle, we'll give you like protection on your site, or performance features or things like that. And
Mm-hmm.
so you only have to install, they still have like clumped together things that kind of like dovetail with one another, but they have like the Jetpack performance plugin that is now like, you don't have to have core Jetpack to run it, you just have Jetpack performance running on your site, and then you're all good. Like, as if
Comments.
you need, yeah,
They have
exactly,
comments with threaded comments, and
yeah.
they have login. You can log in that way.
Mhm.
There's I don't know, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's WordPress.com specific that's kind of worked its way out of WordPress.com. And I don't know, I don't want to compare it to Facebook, but there's like these pieces where like you essentially get a like button. You can get a little
Sure.
star that you can click on. That's every time I see one of those stars, I always think, and with like a whole bunch of automaticians all liking it. I
Right.
I always think, oh, this got to be a very popular thing in the automatic sphere, but it's it. I've never clicked one of those star buttons.
No.
I've never done any of that stuff. It's I don't know. It's very like WordPress, and very much so WordPress.com automaticians that are kind of going about it, that way. But yeah, looking at those and the way you're kind of saying here with all of these different components, those components are now being interacted with within the WordPress.com mobile app. And
Right.
the way that they're talking about this is the idea of kind of grabbing some of those pieces and having them exist in the Jetpack app instead of the WordPress app itself,
Right.
which I don't know, seems a little interesting. I was kind of looking at their website and seeing what's being shown here, but the idea is that you can go and edit your posts and publish from anywhere, as it says. Stats is one of those things, Cosper, that you're
Mhm.
talking about, where it's like you don't get stats from WordPress
No.
itself. It has to use Jetpack in order to pull in those stats, unless you're using third party stuff like some analytics package or something like that. And then those notifications, getting the notifications as well. So those, two of those things is something that I use. And the notifications thing is definitely an important one, because you're just going to randomly go to your website to see if you actually got a comment or something like that. But even looking in their stuff here, you receive 50 likes on a particular blog post, or stuff like that. Some of those things are very WordPress.com focused, which again, we're on WordPress.com's news page here, but
Yeah.
very WordPress.com focused. But one of the things I was reading through here is the simple fact that they're wanting to kind of extract some of these things from the WordPress.com app and only have them exist in the Jetpack app. We used to joke that WordPress at some point you'll install Jetpack and then Jetpack will let you install WordPress. And I feel like we're kind of getting to that point with at least with this part of it.
Sure. Yeah, it's really interesting to me because I think initially when, and you keep calling it the WordPress.com app, and effectively, yeah, it is sort of like the iOS app, has really been WordPress.com first, even though it has just been the WordPress app. And a lot of and kind of the way that Jetpack has. like been from the jump has been to bring the features of WordPress.com to the folks in like the self-hosted space. The
Mhm.
way to get those stats that may not give you as much granular detail as something like a Google Analytics, but in a lot of cases, most folks don't need Google Analytics. They just need to see that their posts are getting traction, that their site is getting visits and things like that. As much as there has been some fairly valid criticism over the years. I mean, we have just in our chat here, Proof Creative said that they've never had a site whose performance didn't plummet as soon as Jetpack was enabled. I haven't personally. It's been a few years since I've seen performance get super bad on a site the second Jetpack gets turned on. They really have worked quite a bit on performance. I think componentizing all those little bits instead of having it be this huge monolithic plugin has really helped that. However, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where um, you kind of this has always been um, Automattic's push, and of course, this is coming from somebody who has always kind of been outside of Automattic looking in. But this is they if they're not going to be able to host your site on WordPress.com, they want to at least get an idea of what is going on inside of the WordPress sphere. And Jetpack is a plugger, like a plugin mainly for beginners.
Mhm.
I mean, there are experienced folks like you and myself. I run Jetpack on a few sites where I don't want to bog things down with Google Analytics, where I don't want to um, you know go find some random plugin that may or may not be supported. I'm just like, hey, you know what? I don't really feel like messing with Ninja Forms or Gravity Forms or whatever. I just need a dumb contact form, and I know Jetpack has one, so screw it. I'm just going to use that.
Mhm.
Um, all of these little things where it's just like, you know what? I know Jetpack does that. It's not horrible if I turn basically everything else off. Like, F it, I'll use it.
Yeah.
I hate putting kitchen sink plugins on my site, and my own personal sites aren't running Jetpack stuff at all. That's fine. Like, they don't need it. I don't need it.
Right.
But Jetpacks, it seems like, and like I said, I'm speaking from the outside here, that Jetpack's sole purpose is to give Automattic an idea of what is happening with like the larger self-hosted WordPress world. Um,
Yep.
they with Jetpack Search, they make a copy of every post on your site to put it into their Elasticsearch, so then you get quick search results, because WordPress search has always been terrible, and Elasticsearch is remarkably better. But I mean, they're scraping every post on your site, which they could do if if they just subscribe to your RSS feed, but you're effectively giving them a door into your content, into your posts, into the various like pages and drafts and everything else on your site. You're giving them all of this data to work with. They may be doing nothing with it, but
Mhm.
I mean, that all depends on their motivations not changing.
Yeah.
And we're coming up on WordPress's 20th birthday. Like, they want to keep growing the install base of WordPress. They want to keep, pushing and everything else. So, um, it's interesting to me with how they've been unbundling the apps, though. I don't necessarily think that these Jetpack features, I understand why they did it, but I don't think that these Jetpack features needed to be tied into, if they were going to argue for, we're building this WordPress.com or see, now I'm doing it. The iOS app
Right.
for just WordPress users in general.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted an easy way to log in case there wasn't, or there were some, tie-ups with XML RPC on your site or whatever. So they're like, okay, we'll let you log in through your Jetpack account, through your WordPress.com account to your site. Using Jetpack and bundling it in there made it work easier. There was less support and troubleshooting around I can't connect to my site. It's like, well, if you're using Jetpack, and then they're like, okay, well, now that we have Jetpack, we'll add stats, we'll add notifications, we'll
Mm-hmm.
add reader, which again, one of these things outside of automaticians, I do not know a single person who uses the reader functionality in the app. People who are serious about following blogs, for the most part that I know, use an RSS reader.
Right.
I mean, or after Google Reader folded, maybe some folks moved on to Feedly, but they just got sad and they're like,
Mm-hmm.
RSS is dead, even though it wasn't, and it's still been there the whole time.
Right.
But for the most part, like, okay, fine, like split out all of these things so you can have a Jetpack app, you can have just a basic straightforward WordPress app where
Mm-hmm.
the tendrils of the parent company of Automattic aren't just in there rooting around and everything. That's fine. I think that's a great thing. I think we should have done it sooner. Oh, here we go. Nomad Skateboarding uses the reader exclusively. I think that's great.
I think that's
I
great too.
mean, yeah. Any way that you can consume reading sites outside of, um, outside of just, browsing them, or, getting stuck subscribing to a bunch of Substacks, or, whatever. Like,
I
hey,
I am
cool.
curious though. So Nomad Skateboarding, is your website hosted on WordPress.com, or are you using a self-hosted website? That
Yeah.
that that kind of makes me think, like, if he's using a WordPress.com site, makes sense, because it's like, well, all right, there's you're already in that app. Like, I loaded that app today and it asked me, like, what's my favorite color, kind of thing. It's kind of prompt, and I was like, oh wow, I have that stuff to answer as a blog post if I wanted to. Let's see
Huh.
here. So I subscribe to the email list of those that I'm interested in, and everything else I put in the reader feed. I like the topics as well, and being able to connect with new WordPress users. That's cool.
Yeah.
Which also means that you've probably pushed the stars. So
Right.
you're not an automatician, or maybe have you ever thought about becoming an automatician? Because that might be a way of approaching it. But seriously, one of the things that I was looking at, when I was kind of prepping for this topic, is the idea of logging into my WordPress.com site using the WordPress app.
Mhm.
And I have XML RPC disabled on my site, because it's like, do I really need yet another endpoint for them to connect into and start messing with? And so I have that disabled. Well, when you go to log in using that, it asks you, hey, do you want to log in this way? If you do, we need to have access to XML RPC. Where
Right.
the Jetpack app, I haven't dug into, like, what it is that it's using in order to do the login, but it may be what you were saying. It's logging into Jetpack, and then Jetpack on the Jetpack servers are then communicating through that in order to be able to get into the website through the
Right.
side door, if you will. So I don't know. It seems like, I know we've told people so many times, disable XML RPC, turn on like security plugins, do all this stuff, and now we're left with an app that isn't being marketed very well. Looking at the website for the app, it's not being marketed very well, and it
No.
feels like, if you go look at the Jetpack site, or even looking at this site here, they really want you to use the Jetpack app.
Sure, of course. Well, I mean, there's money to be made in using Jetpack services. In what was the I feel like somebody it was maybe Matt Medeiros, someone put the numbers together, or at least I've heard Matt Medeiros like cite the numbers, is that after the first year of paying for like the introductory prices for all the different Jetpack services that you can get, Protect and all of these additional things, you can lay out close to, if you decide to keep all of the services, if you're paying for the big bundle, the price jump in like the second or third year, I can't remember when, it jumps up to like $1,000 a year.
Wow.
Yeah. They're like, hey, like, you see the little slash through the price, but if you were to go through and buy every additional add-on that you can get through Jetpack, and I see why maybe they're unbundling some of this stuff. Nomad Skateboarding pointed out that, yeah, it was Matt, and after the first year discount is when all that kicks in. So getting that sticker shock of the second year, then you go through and kind of pick and choose the pieces that you need. I think moving forward, hopefully, it's claimed that the unbundling of Jetpack and the Jetpack features from the WordPress app is really about giving like independent development points. Like, so all the Jetpack stuff, they can still work on that internally at Automattic. Everything else, I have concerns that the WordPress app is going to end up languishing because a lot of the people who maybe had to work on getting notifications and reader integrations and stuff like that, also maybe had some free time to polish up like their little favorite part of the iOS app. And now, I mean, they might still work on that, but now it's going to be a separate code base. It's going to be, I mean, it's still got all of the original components and everything else, but you've got to go contribute to a second GitHub project now if you want to go, do some work on the core iOS app. I'm hoping that the community takes it and runs with it.
Right. Hopefully.
Yeah.
We just need to learn Objective-C and Swift deeply, and then we can make it better. I did want to mention one thing before we end here, which was the WooCommerce app.
Yes.
So the WooCommerce app, if you notice down here at the bottom here, it says the WooCommerce mobile app is free and powered by Jetpack.
Yes.
So the idea here is that it's using that Jetpack interface to connect to the website and be able to get your notifications, pull in your orders, and look at the various products that you have on there. Take a look at your stats, and if you have multiple stores, you can manage the multiple stores. Do you need Jetpack? This is the way in which you should connect to it, and you have all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, I mean, I can see where the Jetpack app and the WooCommerce app are essentially like the same type of setup, and that the WordPress.com app, or rather the WordPress app, is going to be its own separate thing entirely. And it even mentions on the site, it says that it's the and that they're open source, just like WordPress. So if you want to make it better, you can make it better. Just
right. Pull requests welcome.
Right. Just go learn Objective-C and Swift deeply, and go from there. So I don't know, man. I feel like the WordPress app never got like the fit and finish that it needed in order for someone like me to be able to use Gutenberg on it. And
Sure.
trying to use the mobile site on my phone is next to impossible, especially if you have any accessibility stuff turned on. So if you make the font a little bit bigger on your phone or any of that sort of stuff, everything gets blown out of whack and looks
Yeah.
horrible, and it's very difficult to manage. So
Yeah.
yeah.
From like an accessibility standpoint, especially, I mean, anybody who has any sort of boomer or older Gen X people in their lives, when you start bumping the font size up, this is kind of an interesting thing, and it's something I've heard about, mentioned about accessibility. Is accessibility applies to everybody because you're always just one step away from needing accessible considerations yourself, and that includes having to bump up font sizes because you can't see so well. I don't know if you've noticed over the past few years that I've been on the water cooler. Now I'm wearing glasses. Yeah, Jason and I both have glasses. And, if I'm looking at my phone, if I'm looking at things without my glasses, I have to bump the font size up, or I have to just squint through it, which is normally what I do because I don't want to be one of those old a-holes with a larger font size on their phone. But I think it's really interesting, and I'm glad you called out the WooCommerce app. I'm really surprised that we didn't get to it sooner. But so if you're running a WooCommerce site and you want the WooCommerce app, and that integrates with Jetpack, which gets you all your stats. But also occasionally you want to post blog posts from the WordPress app, and you are primarily a mobile first, mobile forward person like Tucker, then you have to have 3 different WordPress apps installed on your phone. And again, I have long railed against monolithic plugins, the monolith of specific things, but it does start to feel like 3 apps is beginning to be too much.
And I have to use Google Analytics. I have to pull in a Google Analytics app to look at it that way. And, the list can just go on and on and on as the various apps that I need in order to kind of make things work. Yeah, it's funky.
Yeah.
So, shall we wrap it up?
Yeah, I guess so.
Perfect. I think we made a show.
Huh.
So, here's our outro. All right. Our content over there, we'd really appreciate it. We'll be posting stuff on Water Cooler as well as over on Dev Branch once a month. Feel free to go take a look at those. Talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.